Hello everyone. You are watching Lecture 2, Part 2. In quest of digging into the history, now we will talk about the Permanent Settlement Act of India, which took place during 1793, and it shook the whole India in a different way. In the previous video, you came to know about a joint stock company which was established in England and that eventually came into India and conquered the whole kingdom. So now let's begin our discussion on Permanent Settlement Act of India.
The early colonial states' chief concern was the security and stability of land revenue. It was their principal source of income. British East India Company relied on this income to pay their shareholders profit sharing in England. Various mechanisms were created in different parts of India to exploit the land revenue system in their favor. Permanent Settlement Act of 1793 was the most controversial among them. It was introduced by the Governor-General Lord Cornwallis. By the permanent settlement, a private property right in revenue collection was assigned to a local jamindars, and demand of revenue in return from them was settled in perpetuity. The jamindar's duty was to collect rent from the ryots and pay a part of it as revenue to the state. The process through which permanent settlement was implemented need to be studied carefully, as it was considered to be the nucleus of British rule in India. It was mainly a deal between the British and tax-collecting rural gentry or jamindars. As I have already mentioned some points about it, the British made the jamindars the de facto land owners. They also fixed the tax demand in perpetuity, as the state would not increase the rate in future. Jamindars were given the permanent ownership of the land instead of 1, 5 or 10 years. But a law related to the permanent settlement made the jamindars shackled in a trap. After the perpetual settlement of land, jamindars were bound to pay their taxes with clockwork punctuality before the sunset of the last day of the year in return. It refers to the end day of the Bengali year, Chaitra. It was fixed and no change or no concessions were made by British to their land agent jamindars in this matter. If someone failed to pay the tax, his jamindari would be auctioned off and given to a new one. It was known as the Sunset Law. Every British gruesome policy was driven by ill-will objectives. Permanent settlement was not the exception. One of the main objectives of this land settlement was to ensure agricultural development by accumulated wealth in the hands of jamindars or landlord class. It was expected by the British that fixed taxes, rising produce prices, and full-fledged land cultivation would help amass more wealth in the hands of landlords. In returns, they would reinvest their surplus in the agriculture, thus would invest the economy. That will eventually boost the economy, but it did not happen in reality. Those jamindars, first of all, were not supported by the new technology of agriculture to meet that huge demand. On the other hand, they became, in contrast, leisure class and oppressors of the poor peasantry. The new land ownership system helped to grow a new elite class replacing the old Muslim elite class in Bengal. This class was unequivocally loyal to the British masters and their interests. Moreover, it gave the British an uninterrupted channel of land revenue collection without any sort of hassle. The impact of the permanent settlement was manifold, that it reaches that point which is difficult to be elaborately covered. We have to go one by one so that we can understand the changing dynamics of Indian society, especially in Bengal. Because of the Sunset Law, many Jamindars lost their land ownership, who failed to pay huge amount of taxes imposed upon by the permanent settlement deal. This thing made those landlords to be more loyal to British colonial power. It also grows a tendency among them to impose higher taxes on the peasants under them. Farmers were the real victim of this new land revenue system. Their land property rights had been absolutely denied by permanent settlement. Peasants suffered due to overtaxation and inhuman oppression done by their landlords, even if there is drought or any other natural calamities. Jamindars even used to levy taxes on different occasions. They collected taxes in the events of Jamindars' family festivals like marriage, pilgrimages, funerals, and the like. Life of the peasantry of Bengal started to become impoverished. Because of the doubled amount of tax, they became helpless under huge pressure from the Jamindars' high demands. As Jamindars' income grew, they started distancing themselves from tax collection and agriculture. Jamindars became rentiers as they shifted their responsibility of land revenue collection to the intermediaries. This system was known as sub-infeudation system. Rise of sub-infeudation or Pattanidari system was an immediate impact of this new system. Richness of land and high production by the peasants gave the chance to those intermediaries, as they even used to appoint their own intermediaries. Historian William Van Schendel states that there were 5 to 7 layers of intermediaries found in the district of Barishal at that time. From 1772 to 1872, within this 100 years, the number of Jamindars increased from slightly more than 100 to 1,54,200. Cash cropping was introduced to the agricultural lands. The introduction of this large-scale export-oriented cash crop established a link between the Bengal economies with the global markets. This new innovation replaced the traditional commercial production system, which includes the products of cotton, rice, sugarcane, mulberry, etc. Instead of those goods, cash cropping introduced large-scale production of jute, indigo, opium, tea, and silk to be sent to the overseas markets. This new production line forged new ties between Bengal's rural economy with European and Asian markets. Regional specialization was the major effect of cash cropping. Concentration on specific crop was given regionally. which helped some regions to be popular for specific crop production. For example, Eastern Bengal was popular for jute production, Western Bengal for sugar and silk, and the North Bengal for tobacco. Although shifting from the traditional agriculture to cash cropping brought more money to the hand of producers, it also made those marginal producers to become vulnerable to the fluctuation of global market. Rise and fall of indigo plantation was the most appropriate example in this case. As I have already mentioned earlier, that this permanent settlement had manifold impacts in Bengal. Now, I'm going to talk about another effect of it. Rise of new institutions signaled the change of societal structure at that time. Modernization in light of Western thoughts took place in decisive shape through several reforms initiatives. New universities in Calcutta and Dhaka were set up to harness the British colonial favored development, which quickly achieved academic reputation. Health sector was improved. Transport system got modernized through new railway network. Communication channels were established like telephone and telegraph, which helped the people to communicate within short time. Strengthening the government institutions were the priority of British. Thus, permanent settlement gave the chance to them to build police and army in the name of maintaining law and order. Permanent settlement contributed to the fall of the old city of Dhaka and helped to grow the city of Calcutta. As the Jamindars and their intermediaries flocked to Kolkata, the heart city of British East India Company government, that city started to rise. New institutional, educational, judicial system attracted those rising wealthy people to Kolkata. A term was used for them, which was absentee landlords. As because they stayed at Calcutta, but their Jamindari lands were in Bengal, historians usually call them so. Because of the rise of Calcutta as administrative, cultural, commercial and economic hub, many industrial cities of Eastern Bengal were declined or stagnated. The most dynamic and dramatic example of it was the decline of Dhaka. Dhaka, a major textile exporting city, faced a sharp decline due to British policy of centering the Kolkata in its affairs. The city's export declined to even disappear. If I give an example, you can understand it more clearly. Due to the rise of new hub of Calcutta, population of Dhaka decreased from about 2 lakhs to 50,000 in 1840s. It was the sign of the decay of Dhaka's historic importance and influence due to British intervention through Permanent Settlement Act of 1793.
As we have discussed about colonial cash cropping earlier, here we show an indigo factory as an example of colonial cash cropping. Indigo movement was mainly occurred because of the indigo cultivation. This was not only one. There were many other movements which took place because of the Permanent Settlement Act of India. In this episode, we mainly focused on the permanent settlement, but those movements will be discussed in the next segment, in lecture 3.